Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
Yeah, they're doing well today. Of course, unfortunately, the last couple of days, tragedy had struck as we lost the great Pat from Moonachie, who one of my fellow O&A supporting cast members. Great guy. I could tell you if you had ever met him, he was a great guy in person. He just always had this cheerfulness about him, and sometimes he just had that little right amount of little Peter Griffin kind of goofiness that always brought some.
Pat was hilarious. One of the, he had such a dry sense of humor, but he was just so funny and well-timed, competitive eater. This is a guy that competed in a lot of these different, eating contests and was very renowned at it too. Actually, TMZ even covered his passing when it was announced earlier this week. And just a great guy, well known for his like you said on the Opie and Anthony as well, the Opie and Anthony show. And boy, I was just watching on YouTube a clip of Bill Burr and Joe Rogan reminiscing about one of the famous moments that they were both in studio for that day, which was, I'm sure you remember, Dan, the baby bird, where if you'd like to explain, Pat made himself famous on the Opie and Anthony show.
Yep, that's right, the baby bird. I remember hearing this one when it happened. It basically after a eggnog drinking contest, Pat kind of regurgitated that into then intern Pat Duffy's mouth. After that, hence it was called. Hence the name. It was called Baby Bird, and the video is up there. YouTube. You could watch this classic O&A moment, and it's still one of the moments I have to listen to every year around Christmas time. I'll sometimes listen to some old Christmas themed bits, and that's one of them I definitely have to listen to, of course.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. I remember being in my car listening to that when that was going on at my job at the time, and it was just one of those moments where you just could not turn the radio off. It was just hilarious. Hey, just God bless Pat, man. Rest in peace, my friend. He was a great dude. I actually never got to meet him, unfortunately, but just a terrific guy from all that I've seen and everybody that spoke about him. And hope he's resting in peace, right, Dan?
Yep, exactly. I still remember a funny memory when I went with a group of some people that in the little inner circles that we went to a go-kart track, and I thought it was funny. It wasn't accidentally, but we sort of both spun out. I think it was trying to make a pass on Pat, and I remember I just thought it was funny, and he kind of knew I was joking around when I was pretending to be like some driver that crashed that was pretended to have in that race. I kind of I faked getting into an argument with him because I thought it'd be funny, and he went along with it. I remember.
You tried to pull a Bubba Wallace on him, right?
I don't know. I forgot how to describe it, but it's some moments I've seen moments I've seen many times that sometimes happens at a NASCAR race. Sometimes if one driver causes another crash, sometimes you get old Temple's players, and I just thought it was funny to just to fake that, just be a little silly, and he seemed to get a laugh out of it.
Very funny, man. That guy had a great sense of humor. And as a matter of fact, since we mentioned the baby bird, I will include that in a link, in the description of this video. So if you're interested, if you're an old O&A fan and you want to reminisce and look at a great moment in time, check that out. And if you're a new fan or just a fan of ours who hasn't heard that yet, please do yourself a favor and check that out. Very, very funny. And so unfortunately, as we move on here, we got a lot to cover today, Dan. There is a lot of news going on. And actually, as we're recording this right now, the New York Rangers are wrapping up the first period in Ottawa as they lead 1-0. We'll get to them a little bit later on because I'm sure the Rangers are on your shit list right now just as much as they are mine. So we're going to have to dig into them in a little bit. But let's start off with our football teams. And obviously, I got my green and white on. I'm all jacked up about Mike White. We'll get to that in a second. Let's start with your New York Football Giants, my friend, as they played on Thanksgiving. And before we even get into that, how was your Thanksgiving, Dan?
Well, the food was good at least. The game, not so much, unfortunately. It was just like I just felt there was no defense, so many squandered opportunities. I mean, there was an easy 4th and 1 that was such an easy that could have that Saquon Barkley could have just tiptoed into. It was just like, oh, really? I just feel bad. I know someone who's a Giants fan in Texas who went to the game. That, oh my God, he must have been upset. It must have been a letdown for him. The one time every year, because the Giants are in the same division as the Cowboys, he takes advantage of it and goes every year ever since he's moved. And he just had to win such a horrible thing. The one time he gets to see his team every year, and I just felt bad. And I don't know. I think I may have thrown maybe a jet. I don't know. It's amazing I didn't throw my glass of Jack and Coke at the TV. Coke during that game because the Thanksgiving, so I had a little Jack and Coke during the game.
Why not? Why not? Might as well kick back and have a couple of Jack and Cokes, watch your
Yep.
team play.
Yep, exactly. And I even had I had the table set up, like the tray thing,
Yep.
because the food was ready around that time. So I had that table set up, like the I don't know, it's like a table, like a fold out table
Mm-hmm.
that I closet, set it up in front of the TV, and I was eating my Thanksgiving dinner while I was watching the Giants game, and unfortunately didn't go well. The one rare time that I actually have rooting interest in one of the Thanksgiving games, and it didn't go well.
Well,
And
unfortunately, it didn't. But look, the Giants had a bad second half in that game, right? But they had a pretty good first half. They were up 13-6. They were looking pretty good. The defense was hanging in there. You are right. In the second half of the game, the Cowboys offense just dominated the Giants defense as they ended up putting the final nail in the coffin of the 28-20 Dallas Cowboys victory. So like I said, it was 14-6. It was 13-6 at halftime. So the Giants got outscored 22-7 in the second half. So it was a rough second half. But the Cowboys, you knew they were going to be coming in very motivated. The Giants were so banged up. I mean, look at that Giant team too. They had so many injuries. They had so many things to deal with. They were down about 2 or 3 guys on the offensive line. A couple of receivers are out. They had so many guys that they would normally be counting on that just weren't there in that game. And it just stinks that it broke out that way for the Giants. But I will say that the Giants still saved face. The Minnesota Vikings, who are supposedly one of the best teams in the NFC, got blown out at home 40-3 by this same team in Minnesota. So I think we should recognize that although I completely understand that, you being upset with the less than perfect performance the Giants gave, there are a lot of good things to take out of that game. You know, Daniel Jones not making the big mistake again. Saquon Barkley is still healthy, which is a good thing. You're getting some guys back next week, and the Giants were still able to be within a score of the Cowboys. And not only that, they covered it. I mean, if you bet on the Giants covered in that game. So, it's not all bad, but and here I am. I'm trying to put a good spin on it. But do you take anything from what I'm saying, Dan? Or are you still just,
A lot of good to take out of the game. At the same time, it just hurts losing to the Cowboys,
I
especially
get it.
sometimes when they deal with all those Cowboys fans in New York. Sometimes, not
There
sure
are a
how
lot of them.
not sure how that happened, but unfortunately,
It's called front runners.
that's a few of those. But so that made it hurt even more. Trust me, there's one or two at my job, so it's like so that one hurt. So
Yeah,
it's like
I totally get it, man. I totally because for you guys losing two to the Cowboys, it's like the Jets losing two to the Patriots. I could have cut that game no matter however way I wanted it to. The bottom line is, if the Jets lost that game, you're going to be very disappointed. And just like you, when the Giants lost to the Cowboys, you're going to be very disappointed about it.
yeah, and it's like I felt like that whole Thanksgiving weekend didn't go well. For one thing, the I had two other big events I was watching that weekend. I had of course, yeah, I had the Rangers on Saturday, the game that was on Saturday that weekend, and of course Friday the U.S. was playing against England at the World Cup. So that game ended in a tie pretty much. That's all I could say about that game. But that still doesn't go to full story because we all know that the U.S. did beat Iran 1-0 and advanced to the next round of the World Cup, as we know. But also the the Rangers game on Saturday, that game felt like we were going to win this. I was like, somewhere in the middle of the third period, we got this. And I had never seen such a collapse. Like,
Yeah, we'll get into the Rangers in a little bit because I'm still digesting the garbage that they gave us for the last couple of games. But you know what? You actually mentioned the the World Cup, and let's spend a minute on that real quick. Um, have you found yourself getting into the World Cup? I mean, I'm not really a big soccer fan, but I've been taking a peek at it a little bit. How about you?
I do watch when the U.S. is playing, and so I was watching all three games that they were playing so far, and so I was stoked about that win in the afternoon. The U.S. advancing to the next round. That was a little science. Probably the World Cup is a rare time I'm watching soccer when the U.S. is playing. I'm doing my patriotic duty and watching my country's team. Uh,
Exactly.
hopefully go en route to to a victory, which I have to say would kind of be nice. Even though I imagine because, well, for one thing, doesn't it feel weird the World Cup happening during close to like somewhere late fall, early winter,
Yeah,
rather than during the summer? Because from what I gather, the reason it was scheduled is because from what I heard, Qatar, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the country's name right, has two seasons, hot and really hot. And during the summer, apparently over there it's really hot. So during this time of year, it was more hot. So I guess they figured it'd be too much to have the game played in like really hot. So they figured that played in hot.
yeah. Just
Best way to
another
describe
reason.
for what I know.
What's that? Dan, you froze up there for a sec.
From what I gather, that's why, because of the weather,
Yeah,
because a little bit less hot
yeah,
during uh, during this
yeah. Just
year
yeah.
over there. Of course, all stadiums. I wonder how it affects bathroom lines because I know for sure when I go to a Met game, sometimes the reason especially on a packed day, that the bathroom lines could be long. Maybe a lot of fans were drinking a couple of beers, and I think that told me you don't own beer, you borrow it. So I wonder how that affects how it affected the bathroom lines of the World Cup running short, are shorter. The bathroom lines of the World Cup.
Yeah, no,
You're
that's
there. You froze.
yeah, no, that's true, man. Yeah, you froze up for a minute, but I could hear you, and you're back now, so we're all good. So yeah, you're 100% right, and that's another reason too why Qatar, however you want to say their name, they should never have been given a World Cup in the first place. It's a joke that the World Cup's even over there right now, especially with all the human rights stuff going on over there. And they have just they also backed out of selling alcohol at the last second, which would be very annoying if you had planned on going to Qatar for this World Cup, which I don't understand why you would in the first place. But the it's been very interesting too watching this. It's a shame too that they stick it in November. I feel like the World Cup would be getting a lot more play if it was like you mentioned, during the normal time over the summer, which would normally be in June into the early weeks of July. But now we're sitting here in just about Christmas time talking about the World Cup, which is weird. But hey, I mean, I guess that's what it is. And hey, if the US goes deep, this is going to be big for US soccer, right? I mean, you know,
That
our generation doesn't really care, but this will help the younger generation.
yeah, that'll be big. And of course, I have to say, if we somehow pulled off the big thing of all things by winning the whole thing, that's got to be what that would be one very freezing cold parade down the Canyon of Heroes. Like,
Yeah,
pretty pretty sure they would do a parade down the Canyon of Heroes if we won the whole thing.
they definitely would. You're right about that, and they'll be breaking out some parkas if that's the case. So yeah, hey, good luck to the US men's team over there. They start up again. I think on Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning they're playing. So that's going to be the next time they play. So hey, let's get the US going, and hey, this is the couple of minutes we just spent talking about this is more than I ever thought we'd spent talking about soccer on this show. So hey, we're broadening our horizons a little bit. But in now that we got that out of the way, back to talking a little football before we wrap up that now, as I do want to talk about my Jets, man. I am very, very excited about the Jets. Um, they end up naming Mike White the starting quarterback last Wednesday, and there were people that were behind it. There were people that didn't like it. Mike White. I've said on this show that I thought he should have started the season when Zach got hurt. Instead of Joe Flacco. I thought that Mike White just had a higher upside. And look, now here we are, the end of November, and for all intents and purposes, Mike White is the Jets starting quarterback. Until further notice. The Jets go out on Sunday. They beat the Chicago Bears 31-10. Mike White goes 22 for 28, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 91 QBR, which I'm not big on QBR, but it's one of the highest the Jets have ever had for a game. I mean, hey, it's just a really, really awesome thing that's going on right now at the Jets. And what are you thinking about it, Dan? What did you think when you saw Mike White's stats and how he looked on Sunday?
He looked good. This was just maybe one little sampling, but he looked good, and I feel as long as they keep winning, I say ride with the hot hand.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it, man. I totally agree with you. And the scary thing is that I've heard a lot of Jet fans, like even going into the game on Sunday, I heard Jet fans that were rooting against the Jets going into that game because they wanted Zach Wilson to play. It's like, are you a Zach Wilson fan or are you a Jets fan? I don't understand fans that think that way. It's like these guys, they get all obsessed like they're playing a game of Madden. I heard people today on WFAN and for the last couple of days talking about Mike White, the fact that he's a free agent after this year. Guys, the guy has started one game this year. He started like 3 games or 4 games in his career. You know, I'm very excited about Mike White right now. I think Mike White should be given this chance and he earned it. But I mean, let's just take one game at a time. I'm not thinking about Mike White going to free agency, like he's Jacob DeGrom or Aaron Judge. I'm not thinking about Mike White. Ooh, he's messing with Zach Wilson's development. You know what I worry about Mike Wilson messing with? Our wins and loss record. I want to win. The Jets are 7-4 right now. Do you know what I want after this game against Minnesota? I want the Jets to be 8-4. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care what the deal is. I don't care if I'm right. I don't care if I'm wrong. I just want the Jets to win. It's been a long time since my Jets and your Giants we're both sitting at 7-4 right now. And I just don't understand these fans that want to think about everything but what's in front of us. The Jets are 7. Let's just concentrate on getting to 8-4. Mike White now is going to be the Jet quarterback until he has a couple of bad games or gets hurt or whatever. But while he's this quarterback and while he's playing good, let's just ride it, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. It's right the hot hand.
Yeah, sorry, I threw it over to you at the worst time. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm just I just don't understand. I see these fans that they get all wrapped up in everything about what we see, except what we see on the field. And the fact of the matter is that Mike White yesterday had a better game than we've ever seen Zach Wilson have in his entire career at any point. At the game that Mike White had yesterday, not even counting the game he had last year against Cincinnati, is one of the best games that we've had the Jets, at quarterback since Ryan Fitzpatrick left, and that was 7 years ago. So I'm not getting wrapped up in anything. I just want to win. I want to beat the Vikings, and that's it, right, man?
Exactly. Get this W and keep going right the hot hand. Who knows where it can go?
Exactly. And the Jets get the next 2 games. These are most likely, I mean, unless he gets hurt on Sunday, which God forbid. But these next 2 games, we're really gonna see what Mike White's got. It's gonna be Minnesota this week and Buffalo the week after in Buffalo. So obviously we just saw the snowstorm they had up there last week or whatever it was, a week and a half ago. So the Jets are going to be walking into, a hornet's nest up there. That Buffalo place cannot be fun to play. Especially, I remember the Jets playing the last week of the season up there last year, and man, they were getting their teeth kicked in. It was not fun to watch. And Buffalo's got a good team. So the Jets got to watch out. Their defense has to play good. And, one other thing, too, that there's a rumor going around, and I don't know if it's true, because I really didn't, I don't remember Josh Allen really airing the ball out too much on Thanksgiving in their game against the Detroit Lions that they just barely won. But there's a lot of word going around right now that Josh Allen can't throw the ball more than 25 yards. And that's because of the injury he suffered at the end of that 20-17 loss against the Jets in the Meadowlands, or whatever, at MetLife a couple of weeks ago. So that is another interesting little nugget that you have to remember, that maybe Josh Allen, is a little banged up here, and that could really, really work in the Jets' favor, right?
Yeah, I could. This game might be. I have to say, it might have to pull a little gene here, but I think it might have to bet some money on the Jets for this game.
Yeah, man. Hey, I mean, they're gonna, and the thing about this, about the betting on them too, is if you put money on them this weekend against Minnesota, they're gonna be I think they're 3.5 point road underdogs right now. So you'd be getting some good odds on them. And you know that next week going into Buffalo, they're going to be road underdogs too. So hey, if the Jets could, if you put money on both those games and the Jets pull out one of them, you should be able to walk away with some with a couple extra bucks in your pocket, right?
Yeah, maybe a couple little extra pocket money. Maybe you want it. Maybe if you bet and you won, you could probably maybe get some. If you can find a PS5, get a PS. Someone that wants a PS5. You win that money, probably get it if you can find one. Because I hear those things are a hot commodity. I'm waiting. I'm kind of waiting a little bit myself for the price to drop down on one of those. But eventually, I'll get a PS5. But right now, I'm just waiting for the price to drop down on those because I've never
Yeah.
cost this much in my life. Like I remember maybe the most I remember paying I remember my high school days like paying $40 for a PlayStation game. Something like that. I remember the Metal Gear Solid paying like 40 something, I think 45 if I remember correctly back then.
Yeah, yeah, it's true, man. I mean, so the these video games too coming out, they definitely are, as you said, hot commodities around this time of year. So hey, maybe you could get a little extra pocket change and put it on the Jets and pick up one for yourself. Hey, for everything else, man, I mean, right now, for your Giants, as we wrap up the New York football talk over here, um, I just want to talk about their next game real quick, as they're playing the Commanders next week. The Commanders are a tough team right now. They're playing better under Tyler Heineke. The Giants are actually underdogs in this game, which very, very much surprises me, especially with how well the Giants have played so far this season. What do you think, Dan? Do you think that's disrespect to the Giants that they're I believe 3 point underdogs?
Exactly. I kind of feel this game I feel like this game is more winnable against the Commanders, which I've had to still getting a little used to saying that, calling them the Commanders, but
Yeah, it's true. I've heard people even call them the Commodores, and it's like, no, it's the Commanders, even though it's still the Redskins, but whatever.
I know someone that's a Redskins fan that I almost found it hilarious the fact that he has to get new merchandise now. Like I was secretly thinking how funny would it be if they just changed the team colors and stuff, like really go all to make them have to get new merchandise because I swear I know somebody that he painted one of his, I think he painted his like where his sort of office in his house that he painted it ready to go. Like, so I just thought it would have been funny to have seen him have to go through this whole trouble of getting two birds. I also have to say, I wonder how much that affects if any fans got any tattoos, if they need to change any tattoos. I don't know how that works.
That's a good point too. I'm sure there's a couple of them that had to alter that tattoo. But to be honest, actually, the real diehard Washington fans, whatever you want to call them, that I've seen, they really haven't even acknowledged that name change. I mean, I guess they kind of had to, but for all intents and purposes, I think they still just refer to them as the Redskins.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm pretty much sure they're there in full on the shirts and stuff with that logo on it. Just like
Yeah,
I see plenty of people I know, just like I know some friends in Cleveland and they still call me Indians.
yeah, that's exactly. You're 100% right about that. Yeah, so hey, big test for the Giants and a chance to shove the that 3 point underdog line right down Vegas and the bookies' throats if they could get that up, and I think the Giants will. I think the Giants should beat Washington. Just like I feel really good about the Jets going into Minnesota too. I mean, um, I don't feel as good as I do about the Giants going against Washington. I think that the Jets are going to be in a real tight game against a real good team. So hey, we're going to see what our two teams are made of. Can the Giants take this slight or at least a perceived slight against them, and come out on top? And Can the Jets go in against a team? The Jets have taken a lot of flack this year because they've beaten a lot of backup quarterbacks. Well, by the way, everybody wants to fall over the Dolphins. Take a look at the Dolphins schedule and tell me who the Dolphins have beat that the Jets didn't. So let's start right there. But also, this is the Jets' chance to shut people up too now. Kirk Cousins is a good NFL quarterback. He's not going to be one of these backups that the Jets have played. So Sauce and this defense and Mosley and all these guys need to go out there and shut them down. All right, now we got the football talk out of the way. Let's jump right back in to some hockey talk. We'll wrap it up with a little free agency talk with the baseball, since nothing really is going on right now, baseball wise. But hockey wise, man, we got a lot to bitch about, really. As our New York Rangers right now are just not looking too good. They're trying to avoid their third consecutive loss tonight. Just blowing leads, man. I mean, as you mentioned it before, I mean, look, the game against Edmonton, they go into the third period leading 3-0. 20 minutes later, it's a 4-3 loss. Even against Anaheim earlier that week, Rangers go out there. Just crap. They didn't blow a big lead like they did Saturday against Edmonton or Monday against the Devils. So actually, I'm sorry. This would be the fourth consecutive loss if the Rangers lost today. But that game against the Devils yesterday, man, was everything bad that we've seen about this team wrapped up into one period, really, almost. But it was a game. The Rangers go out there. A minute or two into the game, they score a great goal. Great look from Filipino, hitting Artemi Panarin in stride, scores the goal. Boom. It's looking great. The Rangers came out flying against the Devils, Metropolitan Division rival, going back years against this Devils team. They get the 1-0 lead. Then Mika comes out, scores the next goal. Rangers up 2-0. And from that point on, it was all downhill. Just complete garbage. The Rangers just did not look confident with the puck. They were terrible. Shesterkin is going out there and putting a lot of the pressure on himself. Look, has Shesterkin been as good as he was last year? No, but he also hasn't been terrible. Not nearly as bad as this team has looked in front of him. So what do you think, Dan? What has been your impression from these blown games?
I just feel the defense has been faltering too much every time. I mean, it's like I said, it's not really more Shesterkin's fault, but there's been horrible defense behind them.
Yep.
And they've been just causing too many turnovers and everything on their defensive zone. And it's been that game on Saturday, I just lost my mind. then I believe it was Monday.
Yep.
I was like, oh my God, it's there may have been a bit of cursing going on from the living room. Let's put it this way. I mean, plus that it got annoyed by seeing every Devils fan I know freaking laugh at me.
Yeah. So. Which, by the way, Devils fan, enjoy laughing, because it's not going to last long, A. And B, we've been laughing at you for the last 10 years. So thanks. Dan, I'm telling you right now, I agree. It was terrible. And you hit the nail on the head with the defense. Look, I'm a fan of the guy. He wasn't my choice for captain, as we discussed, but he was a decent choice. The team was behind it, obviously, in Jacob Trouba. But one thing I will say about Jacob Trouba is he's having a bad year so far. So far, 20-plus games into the season, Jacob Trouba does not look anything like the player that we saw for a full season plus the playoff run last year. I think maybe he's still banged up. I'm pretty sure that he had surgery or something like that after that run. So maybe he's still healing up. I don't know, but this season that we're seeing out of Jacob Trouba is much more reminiscent to the Jacob Trouba that we saw in his first season in New York, which was also not a good year. So, I mean, the first year out of COVID, Trouba was looking good again. He was looking like prime Trouba. Last year, that was incredible from start to finish. His year, Jacob Trouba was awesome. This year, 20 plus games in the season, I'm not a fan. What do you think about our new captain so far? Do you agree?
Yeah, he hasn't. He's been a letdown so far. It's been like, God, please, Rangers, don't put me in a situation where it gets so bad that in January I'm counting a days to baseball season.
I don't think it's going to get that bad. I think that the Rangers are going to figure it out. But what I also think is that they're going to have to they're going to have to do some work on this roster, because I don't think Chris Drury, there were some bad decisions that Chris Drury made. One of them, and look, he's playing okay tonight. He's not the full reason for why they've played bad so far, but I'm not a fan of Yaroslav Halak as the backup goalie. He lets in too many soft goals. He's 37 years old. I don't trust him. So, in a big spot right now, the Rangers are up 1-0 with 12 minutes left in the second period in this game. I don't have any faith that the Rangers are going to win this game, 1-0, or that he's going to shut out the Senators. I'm waiting for the rug to be pulled out from underneath us with this guy in net. I'm not a fan of Ryan Carpenter on the fourth line. Okay, he wins faceoffs, which the Rangers needed. But what the Rangers also need is a guy like Tyler Mott, who they couldn't sign in the offseason, who, by the way, they're playing tonight in Edmonton, in Ottawa. I'm sorry about that. They're playing him tonight in Ottawa because they didn't have any cap room to sign him, because they decided to extend Ryan Reeves last year too. So that didn't work out. I still don't understand why they extended Ryan Reeves last year. They gave him the extension and then traded him anyway, because he was scratched for most earlier this year, which, I don't necessarily think that was a great decision, but, Julien Gauthier has been playing better. I don't know. Everything just seems to be going against the Rangers right now. What do you think? Is there one little remedy that you can think of that will help this team, or is there a player that you would like to plug in, or anything along those lines?
I'm not sure. It's a little too early to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, it's like you said, it is only 20 plus games in the year, so we're only about a quarter of the way through. But yeah, I mean, right now there are a few things that I'm not happy with on this Rangers team. Libor Hayek and Zach Jones too. The Rangers got to figure something out, because right now, even today, Jacob Trouba was starting on the third pair. So, you got to remember too. So that means you have your top four of Fox and Lindgren, like always. Then Schneider is being paired up with Keandre Miller. Bless you.
Sorry about that.
So, you got Schneider and Keandre Miller. And then they had Zach Jones, who's back in the lineup tonight, paired with Jacob Trouba on the third pair. Your $8 million captain being on the third pair is a little worrisome to begin with. But, sticking him with Zach Jones, and it's, it's nothing against Zach Jones, and it's nothing against Libor Hayek. If this was 2 years ago, I'd have no problem with those guys in the lineup figuring things out in the NHL. They're still young. They're still trying to, see what type of players they are. The Rangers don't need that now. What the Rangers need, and by the way, the Rangers just scored to go up 2-0. Looks like that goal came from Barclay Goodrow. So very nice about that. As Rangers take a 2-0 lead up in Ottawa. And, so, hey, maybe this is the beginning of a turnaround. Maybe Yaroslav Halak gets his first Rangers victory tonight, because let's remember that. It's after Thanksgiving. This guy has, I think, what is he, 0-5-3 or something like that? So this is his 9th start in a Ranger uniform, and it's after Thanksgiving, and he still has not won a game yet. So that's a little scary. That's a little scary when it's this late and we still haven't got a win out of our backup yet. But I think that there's a couple of things that need to be addressed on this team. I saw Sammy Blay was on the ice too for that goal. I don't know if he got an assist or whatever, but he was on the ice for it at least. Sammy Blay, I need to see more out of Sammy Blay. I was a big fan of what we saw out of him before his injury last year. But right now, Sammy Blay is not providing that same type of spark that he did last year. And the Rangers need a lot more from him, especially if he's going to be on the third line, right? What do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, especially at the same time, I think Sammy Blay, because of all that time he missed last year, he's still a little bit getting his footing. I think he's going through that final part of coming back for the injury, and that's
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think you're right about that. Um, so the Rangers, look, they just have to figure out a way because it would be one thing to me if the Rangers were going out and just getting shellacked and playing bad hockey, and because then you could just chalk that up to the fact that they're just playing crappy hockey. But the fact that they're going out there and they're grabbing 2-0 leads and they're blowing and 3-0 leads and blowing those games, that is a recipe for a disaster. And it just worries me that we're even seeing that. I mean, I don't know that when you see that in the DNA of a team that they're blowing these games, because what that comes down to me and what it looks like as a fan watching these games is they get so tight. What I saw as soon as the Rangers allowed that first goal to the Devils yesterday, which happened in the blink of an eye, I was watching the game. They were up 2-0. I walked out to grab a tissue and blow my nose. I walked back in and it's 2-1. I mean, it literally happened like that. It was crazy. And as soon as I walked back in and I saw it's 2-1, they take the face off and they're playing. The Rangers looked like they were completely out of sorts. They looked like a completely different team that I had seen for the first, whatever it was, 8 or 9 minutes of that game. And they're going to have to figure out a way. I mean, we saw this team battle back all last year. They faced adversity, they faced elimination, and they stared all that down until game 6 of the conference finals. They have to find a way to get that grittiness back. And my dream, even though it's not going to help entirely because one player isn't going to change everything. My dream scenario is that they get rid of Ryan Carpenter and bring back in Tyler Mott from Ottawa, hopefully soon since they're seeing them. I don't know how willing Ottawa's going to be to let him go, and I don't know how he fits into the cap room. So I don't even know if that's a legitimate possibility, but that's one thing that I could think of to improve this team. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think outside the box, and I just really hope that Gerard Gallant figures out a way to get this thing going again. Because Dan, have you heard too? Gerard Gallant is on the hot seat, and it sounds crazy for a guy that had as a fantastic year as him and the Rangers had last year in his first year with the team. But I hear people already saying that, if this continues till like around, Christmas and the New Year, Gallant might find himself out of a job. Now that stinks of Jim Dolan to me, which doesn't necessarily make it the right call. But what do you think? Do you think if this continues, should the Rangers remove Gallant?
I really don't think so. I think they need to be a little patient. All right, Gallant seems to have a good hold of getting his team out of a funk. So I think maybe they need to hold back a little bit on this one. I just hope Jim Dolan doesn't make that mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, man. I think it would be a very big mistake to get rid of Gallant. But to be honest, though, too, I have to give Dolan credit because I thought it was a major mistake when he got rid of JD and Jeff Gordon last year, and gave Chris Drury the reins as the GM. And that worked out fantastic last year. Everything, everything Drury did seemed to be the right button. Now he just has to keep that going this year, which hasn't been the case so far, but it doesn't mean that it won't be the case by the end of the year. So, let's just hope that Jimmy Dolan doesn't get that itchy trigger finger, and hopefully our New York Rangers are able to turn things around. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't want to be in.
what's that, Tim?
I don't want to be in for one of those seasons that just feels like, oh, what the heck am I watching here?
Exactly. I mean, and we had a couple of them over the last few years during this rebuild, and
Yeah, it didn't feel it felt weird because it's like we had gone through just a huge stretch of like so many years in a row of making the playoffs, and then this is like didn't feel like
yeah,
it just t- tanking for 3 years.
yeah, it's true, man. It's true. So, let's they have to get themselves back rolling again right now as uh the Ottawa Senators just cut the Rangers lead in half and scored to make it 2-1 right now. So let's see how the team reacts. Now that this is the big question. We're gonna move on from hockey in a minute, but this is the big question now. Six and a half minutes left in this second period, and it's 2-1 now. Let's see if this Rangers team can respond the way that we know they can, because this team is better than what they've showed for these last few games where they've blown these leads. So they have to stand up and put their foot down on this crappy Senators team, because the Rangers are better than the Senators team even with Halak in goal. And I'm not knocking Halak for that goal too, because I didn't see what led up to it, so I'm not sure if it's on Halak or it's on the defense or whatever. But hey, you're gonna allow a goal every once in a while. It's how you respond to allowing that goal that matters. And the Rangers haven't responded well lately, and let's hope that changes tonight. But real quick too, let's before we get out of here, I do want to touch on some free agency talk, as we got there's a lot of speculation going on right now. The Mets supposedly met on Zoom with Carlos Rodon yesterday. How would you feel about that, Dan? Do you like the possibility of bringing in Rodon? I know a lot of people are worried about his injury history.
I think Rondon is more of a secondary thing, complementary to Degrom. It seems like, and I feel they're really, if they really, because I feel right now they're just having their little backup plans. Potentially, Rondon could be their might be their number three starter potentially if we sign Degrom. That's what it looks like with him.
I would love that. I would absolutely love if they signed Rodon, because that's what worries me too, is that I see a lot of Met fans hedging their bet and saying, "Oh, Rodon's a good backup plan to losing DeGrom, and he'd be great behind Scherzer." And I'm thinking like you, no, I want DeGrom and Rodon. Going after Rodon, even though he's going to still cost a lot of money, and not, bringing Jake back too, seems very Wilpon-ish to me, right?
I'm pretty sure they're going after the big fish, and that's going at Jacob DeGrom. No way DeGrom is choosing Tampa over us. All right, I don't
Yeah.
think he really chance to win in Tampa over us. All right, it will go. It was a team that has maybe one okay year that sort of gets it, and then they just tank the next year. I feel this team, the Mets. I mean, Steve Cohen's resources. He's committing to doing what to winning,
Yeah.
even though they may not be like wanting to risk trading away prospects too much. But I feel they're willing to make those big moves in free agency. The Grom's going to have a good team behind him, hopefully. And please, DeGrom, come back, DeGrom. Come back, Jacob.
Yeah, we need Jake back, man. I mean, you pair him up with Max Scherzer again. You got and for a full season, you got that dynamic duo going again. So just really got to hope that the Mets well, because just like you said, we know the Mets are going to be in in it for DeGrom with Steve Cohen. The thing that's going to matter is we just hope that DeGrom wants to come back, because if he wants to come back, he'll be back, and that's a good thing.
Back and come on, Jake. No one shows up to games in Tampa, all right? So they're facing other cities.
Well, I don't think he's going to Tampa. I mean, Tampa does not have the money to pay him, and Florida doesn't have the money to pay him either, or Miami, whatever they call themselves now. But the Texas teams are going to be the big challenge.
And even they don't seem like they're more gearing toward Rendon or Verlander. So,
True, true.
so we could see DeGrom. It could be right there. We could get DeGrom without having a bid to get outbid ourselves.
Yeah. And one thing that did help the Mets in one aspect of that too, the Astros signing Jose Abreu, the Chicago White Sox former first baseman, signs with Houston for 3 years, 60 million, 20 million a year. Now that's good for the Mets, because I think if you add one more $20 million salary to that, they only paid Verlander 25 million last year only. But if you're looking at in comparison to these other guys, Verlander got paid 25 million. So even if he walks, you pretty much replace that entire salary with Jose Abreu by himself. So I don't know how crazy the Astros are going to want to be going with with their salary, especially the fact that they're the defending world champions and still have a very good roster. So I don't know how crazy they're going to be going to go out and throw $45 to $50 million a year at Jacob deGrom. And I think the same thing for the Texas Rangers. I think if the Texas Rangers did that, that would be a terrible mistake for them and a terrible mistake for Jacob deGrom himself. I've been saying it all along. The only team that it makes sense to pay him that kind of money is the Mets, right?
Exactly. And just hoping, please, he chooses us. I'm hoping it, and it'd be even something if he announces that he's coming back during Saturday when I'm at the Queens baseball convention.
Yeah, oh, that would be amazing. And
Applause from every Mets fan.
yeah,
There.
yeah, no doubt about it, man. And too, the other thing too that could be happening over these next couple of days is possibly this Aaron Judge saga being resolved, as the Yankees right now they've had big talks with Judge, and supposedly have placed the highest not offer, because right now Mike Trout still has the highest value contract ever handed out to a major league player. I believe it was something along the lines of 11 years and 420 million. Maybe it was 12 years, whatever it ended up being. It was over 400 million, and it was for double digit years. That amounts to, I think his salary is somewhere around 35 million a year. Now Aaron Judge supposedly has been given an offer from the Yankees. They haven't specified exactly what amount it would be, but they said the AAV, the average annual value, would be the highest for a position player all time, meaning that right now that is at Mike Trout at 35 or whatever it ends up being. Right now that is so that puts somewhere Judge in the range of 37, 38 million a year. What do you think, Dan? What do you think that contract looks like? I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of 8 years, 360 to 370 million. What do you think the Yankees offered him? A lot of people are saying it could be a 10-year deal.
I think that's where it is. Anywhere between 8-10 years, might be 8. I'm thinking more likely, but it could be realistically. I think he'll be easily persuaded enough to go to re-sign with the Yankees. I feel like.
Yeah, it seems to me like that's where this is heading right now, where Judge is coming back. He's letting, just like DeGrom is, they're letting these other teams wine and dine them and see what they want to offer them, and see what other opportunities await. But I think for both of the guys, DeGrom and Judge, it's gonna just end up being that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Let's put it that way. And I think that's what they're gonna end up seeing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's what I feel like they're going to be seeing. So it looks like it's going to be going into our favor, and we could, and it'll be. I feel could be even after the holidays that I'm going to be still possibly, hopefully by January. I don't have to constantly click the refresh button
Yeah,
on
that's true
this.
too. Because next week when we're doing our show, it's going to be the right in the middle of the GM meetings for this year. They start on December 4th, which I'm not sure where it is this year. Usually it's in a place like Miami or Las Vegas or something like that, where all the GMs from Major League Baseball meet there at some, lavish hotel, and they hang out there for a week, talk to everybody. They talk to agents, they talk to players, they talk to each other, they talk to owners, and see what they can get done. Sometimes you get some trades done, you get some free agent signings. So I'm excited for this week, and I think that this week of the winter meetings is going to be a big week. I think we're really going to start to see the market develop, and these big fish that we know, like our boy DeGrom, like the Yankees, Aaron Judge. I think we're going to start to see those names come off the board.
Yep, exactly. I feel this is usually the point of the off season where things really start to pick up.
Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right, man. And yeah, what? With that, I think it's just about time to get out of here right now. We're running out of time. And Dan, um, before we get out of here, you have any plugs for yourself?
Sure, my Twitter account Bobo103NYC, also Instagram Bobo718DK, and also Daniel Kurlan on YouTube for all your little comedy content that I post on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go out of your way to check out Dan's stuff on there, subscribe and like and follow him. If you want to follow me, you can check me out on Twitter at my last name, Cramer and Y. You can also check out the show on Twitter at bsith_podcast. And
And
also,
get
what's
the
that?
like get the like and subscribe our show here on YouTube, our official YouTube page where you're watching this show right now. Click that like and subscribe. Help us grow. It'd be a nice little Christmas present to have us maybe grow. Maybe at a point, maybe some little sponsors maybe come start coming our way. Be nice.
Yeah, we're trying to get those views up there and everything on our channel where we can finally monetize it. But we're still a little bit away from that right now, but we're working our way up right now. So I think our numbers are pretty good, and we're only going up, right, Dan?
Yep, exactly. And the more of you that like and subscribe us, the better that chance is that it gets for us.
Exactly. So please, thank you very much, Dan, for that as well. Go out of your way, everybody watching, to like and subscribe our stuff. We appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter, and also on Instagram too, at Best Seat in the House Podcast. So yeah, thank everybody for tuning into our stuff. And once again, we want to give a shout out to Pat Philbin, who is Pat from Moonachie, the Opie and Anthony legend. So we want to give a shout out to him, right, Dan, before we get out of here?
I want to give a shout out to him. It's a very tragic loss. We've lost a good one, and I just want to say his memory will always live on forever in the hearts of all of us that grew to that were fans of all these shows over the years.
Absolutely. And if you want to see some of Pat's funniest work, we're gonna have his the baby bird link in the description. So feel free to check that out. And anything else before we get out of here, Dan?
That's all we got for this week.
All right. And yeah, so before we get out of here, this is Rob Cramer and Daniel Bobo Kurlan of Best Seat in the House podcast. We'll catch you next week, ladies and gentlemen.